Hello, Ken Spriggs here, doing a video of a little short build of a figure from the Loki TV series from Disney Plus, a little figure of Miss Minutes that I found recently on a Facebook page. Now, I've been a little slow in posting some videos and doing some builds since I got back from Wonderfest. And I wanted to just basically address that a little bit. Nothing really major or serious, but this happens quite often. You put a lot of energy and a lot of your creativity into preparing for something like Wonderfest. And pretty much the whole last year, I was pouring a lot of creativity into building a whole bunch of different models and figures and learning 3D printing and things of that nature. So when you get closer to a convention like Wonderfest, you really feel yourself under the gun and you're really trying to get done what you can, and really get some good figures or good builds done so you can take them to the show. And sometimes myself personally, and I don't know if other people experience it, but I tend to get a little bit of a burnout where my creativity becomes kind of lax and I kind of lose my modeling mojo. And it's just really hard to get that feeling where you really want to get into it and start working it, especially if you're building something that's more complex, like my Discovery build and working on tiny wiring or any kind of extended, more complex painting, that sort of thing. I kind of liken it to someone who prepares for a marathon. They run and run and run and exercise and get into really good shape in preparation for it. And then, they go and run the marathon and finish well and get a prize, that kind of thing. But probably the very last thing they want to do after that marathon is go out and do any more running or any more preparation, because they've achieved that goal and they just want to rest and recuperate, as it were. And I think the same thing happens sometimes with your creativity. And the best thing to do at that point is don't force it. Don't try to just power through. Sometimes I do that under certain circumstances if I'm trying to finish something up that I already started. But for the most part, it's a good idea to just back off, build something real simple. Don't do any modifications, don't do any lighting, don't do any really intense things. Because every time I try to do that, I tend to want to just put it off and not do it and back off and just go and relax and play a video game or watch something on TV or something and just take it easy. So I decided to just build this figure here. And it's real simple. There's no extra things on it. I was tempted, and this is kind of what my creative mind does, and I think other people get the same thing. But throughout the process, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I could print this in translucent and light it. Like, no, I'm just doing a simple build. Then I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I kind of cut away parts of her and put like machinery in, like she's a robot or an animatronic or something. No, it's like, just stop. And you have to fight that temptation, because if I pursued some of that and made the build too complex, again, I would not want to finish with it. I would put it off. I would feel frustrated with it. And then ultimately, it wouldn't really serve the purpose that I want it to serve. So I'm just going to go ahead and print this, build it, paint it basically, and just finish one figure and just kind of ease back into these things until I get that flow going again of the creativity. So, all right. So let me go ahead and show you. I will put a link in the end of the video. This is a free figure that I got off of a Facebook group, if you're interested in it. And so here is a figure for Miss Minutes from the Loki TV series. All right, so here are the basic parts. It's a very straightforward figure. It only has her main body with the arms attached, the base, her two hands, 2 legs, and 2 shoes. Now, I went ahead and glued the legs into the shoes. And in order to make sure that they matched up, because these have to fit up into these slots at a certain angle, and the shoes are in an odd pose, I went ahead, after I glued them together, I stuck them on the base. And, well, I stuck the shoes on the base. I put some glue into the top of the shoes and put the pieces in. And then I took the figure and lined it up on top in order to make sure that they were twisted around to the right place. Because the bottom of the leg can go into the shoe in any orientation. So I had to make sure that it was set up so it was correct, because you have this shoe back here is kind of propped up on an angle. Her other one up here is straight up and flat. What I also did was I had printed her hollow, and I definitely recommend that. Otherwise, this piece here would be a nice big hunk of resin, and it would be fairly heavy, and I'm not sure I would trust putting it on these little spindly legs, because you're going to hit it and break it off, and then you got a problem. So she's pretty light though when she's hollowed out, a lot easier to do. So I just put one drain hole at the bottom center right there, and what I did was I had an extra leg that I had printed that didn't work out as well. I just sanded it smoother, put some CA glue in there, and just jammed it into that spot down to where it would meet. And once that fully dries, I'll just use a Dremel cutting wheel to cut that off, sand it smooth, maybe a little putty, and just get that smoothed out so I get rid of that hole. But other than that, pretty straightforward figure. And a little bit more cleanup I have to do, just some more sanding. She's pretty easy to clean up since she's just smooth all over. All of her parts are smooth. And I printed her on an angle like this, so I didn't get any supports on the front. I don't know if I'm going to worry about these lines here or not. That would be a real hassle to try to get in between these things. So, all right. So let me get those parts finished up, and then we'll get ready to start putting on my first coat of primer. I'm going to keep these parts separate to paint them separate from the rest of the body, as well as the base. Let me just pop her up on the legs and show you how she's going to look as a test. Here's a general mock-up of her on the base. As I said, I just have the legs glued into the shoes, but they're not glued onto the base, and neither is she glued onto the legs. Once I get that done, she'll be a little straighter sitting up. And of course, then her hands have to be glued on also. So I can paint the hands and the legs and shoes separately before I glue them on, and the base as well, and then paint the main body. Her arms are a different color than the rest of her body, I believe. I'll have to check out the colors and see. And then get them all glued together. So a pretty straightforward build. And she's going to be kind of cool in that little pose. She also has a little thought bubble coming up here saying, "Hi, y'all." So I'll be working on that also. All right, so I went ahead and cut off that piece down there at the bottom with a cutting wheel. And then I just used the sanding wheel on my Dremel to sand it fairly smooth. Went back over it with some sandpaper with a smaller grit, and then some with a greater, or vice versa, a lower number grit and then higher to get it smooth. It's hard to tell. It looks like there might be a little bit there, but it looks fairly smooth. Once I get a coating of primer on it, I can go back and clean it up if I have to. So she's ready to go. And I just have to get some primer on the hands. So the idea is she's all yellow. This is all yellow with the exception of this stripe is black. And it looks like there's another stripe that's right here that's black. But what happens is the hands cover up most of this right here. Get on there. And it kind of looks like a stripe. So what I can do is paint it orange first, and then paint this ring black, paint a little bit of this black, and then it'll be covered up by the glove. And the same on the other side. Now her legs are also going to be black, but her shoes are orange, which I had to look at some of the stills to see that those are orange as well. So I have an idea on how to do the orange. Let me go ahead and show you a test that I did. So what I did, now here's the first version that I printed of her in a solid resin, so she's pretty thick. There's a bit of a failure up here. I don't know what happened there, but that just didn't finish printing. It wasn't cut off or anything from the top, so I don't know. I was having some trouble, obviously, with my printer, so I'm not sure what that was, but she's pretty hefty compared to her counterpart. I didn't even clean it up. But what I did was I went ahead and put on a coat of, well, I primed it, put on a coat of flat yellow from Tamiya XF3. Let that dry a little bit. Then I went over it with some clear orange, which is X26. I've done this process before. Mostly what I've done is I'll put down a silver or metallic and then put red over it or blue or something else. And it just kind of highlights the color because the clear allows the undercoat to shine through. So that looks pretty cool. That looks about what I want it to be, the color I'm looking for her. I also sprayed some just onto the bare primer just to see, but it's too dark, just a clear orange. You can see that that's too dark. It's also interesting, this looks a little shinier on there than it does on the flat yellow. I think the yellow kind of tones that down a bit. And I don't even have to change that, but I like that because it looks almost like the holographic yellow. It's a nice mix between the orange and the yellow. It's not a bright orange, but it's got a lot of yellow tones in it. So that's where I'm going to go as far as the main parts of her body. I got the shoes with the legs on them primed, and I primed the base. So now that I got her cleaned up, I'm ready to get her primed and the two gloves as well. Here's a couple versions of the little thought bubble, hey y'all, which goes right up here above her. Which would be kind of cute too. So coming along good. Let me work a little bit more on the priming, and then we'll start getting some paint on these. So I did the initial painting, most of the painting, on Miss Minutes. I put a yellow flat coat on her face and arms at first so I could let it dry and then be able to handle it. And then I went back and put some clear orange on it. And then I ended up putting clear orange on the back as well. The back I like, and the sides I like. That's kind of the orange I'm going for, like I did in my test. The front was a little too dark, so I went back over it with some flat yellow, as you can see right now. The same with the arms. Letting that fully dry, and then I'm going to go over it lightly and just mist it with some of the clear orange. I don't want to overdo it like I did originally because it makes it too dark looking. I like that golden orange look, like the back of it looks. All right, so she's getting there. The shoes, I went ahead and did the same thing, and they look pretty good. And then I went over the legs, first of all, with some neutral gray, and then with some Tamiya smoke. I'm trying to get an illusion of her being a hologram, so I'm trying to use some clearer colors to kind of give that impression, rather than just plain black on her legs. So those look pretty cool. And then I got just white on her gloves, which are fine. And then I got some initial white on the nameplate. Nameplate has some missing little sections here. I'm not sure what I want to do with that. If I just want to sand those off entirely, go through the hassle of filling it in with some styrene stripping. We'll see. It should have like a black edge around it. I'll play with that a little bit and then go from there. And I still have to do the base. I'm deciding on some colors. I think I finally decided on maybe something like like an olive drab or a green and maybe like a dark orange, sort of like the coats that you see them wearing in the show that Loki wears. It's like a dark green with some red variant lettering on it, or orange, something like that. So something that will complement her as well. All right. All right, so I went ahead and used a little bit of styrene stripping, and I repaired the edge parts that didn't print correctly around the outer edge of this little word balloon, and then sanded them down a little bit more, sanded a few rough spots that were there and some on the back. Because what I want to do is, once I get this painted flat white, I just want to take a paintbrush and highlight the outer edge with black, and of course the lettering in black as well. So those will stand out on that thought balloon or word balloon. I also got the base painted. I fiddled with a couple of colors. I did settle on the olive green, which is actually the JN green I ended up doing. I used fluorescent red, which is really an orange, to do the lettering. I had to go over it several times to get it to show up bright enough on the dark green background. And then I just painted the inner part of this hourglass and those two eyes in red, just to give it a little bit more character. I went also silver around the two bands, the outer and the inner bands. I'm not going to try to do anything more with like these olive leaf branches, because it's just too fiddly of work, and I don't want to put too much into that to make it look any different. I think it looks fine, and it's just a base anyway, so it'll stand out, and the orange in her body will contrast nicely with the orange lettering. So okay, a little bit more of this to work on, finish up the main figure and the details on her face, and I'll be ready to get this all wrapped up. So here's the completed, well, not completed, but the yellow and the orange put onto her main body and her face. So as I said, I went back over this with some yellow and then lightly misted on some clear orange, so I get that nice looking, it's almost like a mango color, but it's pretty cool. I really like how that looks. All right, so I have to get her face, these lines painted black. Her eyes are white with the black pupils. And then I have to paint this little stripe on her arm and a little bit of a stripe around the upper part before I put the white hands on. And that'll finish her part up, and I can get her glued onto her feet and attached onto the base. Okay, so I finished all the painting. I painted the little radial lines all around her face. You know what? I just realized I forgot her eyelashes. I have to get those yet. I painted white on the inside of her eyes first, a couple of coats, let that dry. Then I put black over the pupil. Painted her mouth black. And then I painted the one ring that's there on the arm, and then I painted a little bit above that, kind of evenly around it, so when the glove goes over it, you actually see two little rings there. And then I painted the hey y'all on the little word balloon and the edge around it. Let me finish up her eyelashes, and then I'll get her glued together and do the final reveal. And there is my completed figure of Miss Minutes from the Loki TV series. So I did get her little eyelashes painted. I also painted just slightly around the ridge around her face to kind of outline it, because it looks that way on the animated part. And you can see how the little you can see two black stripes right below her gloves. And this one's kind of angled a little differently than the other one. All right, so I ended up gluing her feet down first. And I had to use CA glue for all of this. Well, I glued her gloves onto her arms first. Glued her feet down. And then while they were still just starting to set up, I put a little bit of glue inside the slots for the legs and a little bit on the tips of the legs, and I positioned her carefully onto them, held it in place while they started to hold. Now for the thought balloon, word balloon, I keep saying thought balloon. She's not thinking it, she's saying it. Hey y'all, I use a little trick I've seen before on some other videos. I put some CA glue down into the slot because there was a little teeny groove where the tip of it goes into. It was built into the figure. And then I took some kicker and I stuck it on the tip of this piece, so Insta-Set I believe it's called, and then stuck it down and made sure to put it in the right position, and it instantly sets up the CA glue and held it in place, since that's such a fiddly piece. So it's a fiddly figure for sure. You want to be careful where you're going to sit it, because you hit it with something, it's going to snap this off, it's going to snap her hands off, it's going to knock the whole figure off its legs. So, and her legs are actually a little bit thicker, a little bit beefier than the actual figure in there, or the actual character in the show. In the show, they're literally just stick legs, which would have been a whole lot worse. And the creator of this file had told me that he had beefed them up just a little. If you really wanted to, you could replace them with some brass tubing that you bend to the right angles and paint it black or gray or whatever, and then that would be a little more of a support for her, and then glue that down into the feet. So, but pretty cool, a cute little figure, easy to do, just painting, no extra modifications, no lights, nothing like that. So. All right, so really happy with her. She's pretty cool. I like how she turned out. All right, so that's going to wrap up this video for this week. I do have quite a bit done on the Discovery that I've already filmed, and I still have some more things to complete. I did quite a bit more of the painting on the outside of the ship, some more of the modifications on it, and started working on the Shapeways pod that has an interior and some figures with it. And once I get that done enough that I have a suitable stopping point, I'll get that posted as well. And little by little, hopefully I'm getting my modeling mojo back. And I am. It just takes some time to ease back into it. And like I said, don't rush yourself. If you feel yourself getting a little burned out or a little bit creator's block in doing it, it's perfectly fine to back away from it, work on something simpler. Don't force it, don't push yourself, because all you're going to do is get more frustrated. And in the end, it's still going to come back when it's ready to come back. So, all right. And also, I will be doing some more with the white spikes and working with some more of those, and on the diorama for it as well. So, thank you to all my new subscribers, and I will see you the next time.